Hello, this is Romeo Cat Computers, and today I have a new device I'll be setting up today at my radio desk. An 8-switch, 8-outlet electrical switchboard. And I have all kinds of devices on the radio desk that are being fed into one cheap little plastic power strip, which I think ought to change. So let's get into it. So here's the current power strip that I'm using. You can see it's one of the higher end Walmart generic plastic power strips. It's got 5 outlets on the bottom and then 3 spaced out ones on the top for those big wall warts, so a total of 8. And it's also got 3 USB ports, 2 Type A and a little Type C that's kind of hard to see. Now this thing works, but I've got some grievances. For one, well, you can see the mounting job isn't very good, and that's kind of my fault, but the other problem is that it makes noise. Now, this is my radio desk, so I have my radio here, and these USB ports, if you don't have anything plugged into them, it's not a problem, but as soon as you plug stuff in, 20 meters and 40 meters, you get all kinds of noise and stuff. Similarly, I plug my Bofang chargers in here to charge my 2 handhelds. Here's one of the AC adapters, and these also make a lot of noise. And so every time I go to sit down at the radio, I've grown accustomed to reaching back here and unplugging everything, which is then really annoying because those things are now not plugged in, and then I gotta plug them in later. So having a device that gives me the same amount of outlets but will let me switch things on and off on an individual basis will be a bit better. And the final thing I have isn't really a grievance, but I'm worried about these plastic power strips. Because, you know, they're not going to spontaneously combust, but they have been known in cases to fail and then catch fire and then burn people's houses down, which, you know, I don't want mine to burn down, and I'd like a bit of a safer solution. So that's what I'll be installing. So the reason I'm choosing this particular model of switch is because you can see here I've already got one. This one I got about 2 or 3 years ago, when I originally set up this little rack, and it's been working really well. Now currently I'm not using all of the outlets, but you can see I've labeled some of them. This one's the network switch right up here, this one is the laptop, which is up here, and so on. It works fine and I like it, so I figured I may as well just get a second one from the radio desk. Now before I install it, I'd like to show you something interesting on the inside that I discovered the other day. Here's what the inside looks like, and see if you can spot the problem. It's not with the wiring configuration, it all makes perfect sense. Look at how thin these wires are though. According to the writing on them, they're 16 gauge, which isn't really a whole lot. You see, your typical 20 amp circuit in your house is fed with 12 gauge wire, and then slightly thinner at 14 for a 15 amp circuit. 16, if I'm not mistaken, is really rated for about 13 amps, which is what you'll usually find in an extension cord. And this was a bit surprising because this rack mount, now this isn't like high quality, hundreds of dollars, enterprise grade service, but I was kind of expecting a bit more for something that has 8 outlets. And it's not even a 13 amp limit per each outlet. All of it inevitably has to go through one 16 gauge wire. So the entire box here is really limited to about 13 amps. And there's, well actually, yeah, I think there is a little bit of a fuse right there. I was gonna say there isn't protection, but I guess I can't say that because there is. Anyway, since they did use nice spade connectors here, it is possible to redo the wiring, although I don't know if the switches and the outlets are rated for that much, but I digress. Anyway, I'm gonna use it as it is now, but that is a bit annoying, and if you do get one of these, keep that in mind. Now to do the installation, I'm going to take the opportunity to just completely gut out the whole radio corner. I built this desk like a year and a half ago, and this place gets really dusty, so everything could do with a cleaning. Plus there's also some cable managing I can do, and there's that piece of junk down there, that $15 Walmart organizer, which is collapsing under its own structure, so I'm going to take that out, make various optimizations, and then I'll put the new thing in. But you know what that means. It's time for another ragtime piano time lapse. Alright, so now I've gone and cleaned up everything, and I installed this little system down here. If you notice, the old power strip, that black one, had a on-off switch, which also had a breaker built in. And I kind of wanted a little service disconnect here under my desk just to kind of turn everything on and off. Like, for example, if I leave the house for an extended period of time, I don't have to go unplug everything. Also, I had these boxes spare, so I decided to just set them up down here. Now, if you recall from my older video about making an electrical demonstration board, this is where the box came out of, and then this box also came from that. And I never really used that board after I made the video, so I just scrapped it. So coming from here, this is just, if you could see it back there, it's literally just like your typical, I don't know what to call it, the thing that goes into the power supplies. You know, this type of connector. I cut this end off and then just ran it right in there. Unfortunately, the wires inside of here are actually really thin, but they should still be able to make do. It's not really up to code. You see, this one switches the hot, this one the neutral. I'm going to put a tie between the two. And then this bus bar here is just ground. And then this is a 20 amp NEMA locking connector, which is not really appropriate for this situation, but I had it around, and this isn't professional household wiring, so I temporarily set this up to make sure that the wiring is actually correct. And here we can see my outlet tester, and when I turn it on, there we go, 2 greens makes good wiring. Now when I turn it off, you'll see now it's still getting power, and it's giving a 1 green, which 1 green means that the neutral is open. But when I turn it on, it does show the correct wiring, so it's not an error with my wiring. I believe what it is just this box here actually switches the neutral on and off rather than switching the hot on and off, which I guess is kind of important because these are little neon indicators, and maybe they need that to have them work. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm going to go back and put everything together again. Kind of realize that's a terrible thing, because all the devices that will be plugged in, even if they're turned off at the switches, will still have a live conductor running up to the device, which could be a possible hazard. So what I did was I opened it back up, switched a line in the neutral, and then I switched a line in the neutral here. I haven't done it on the rest of them yet. So now when I turn it on, we get a proper 2 greens. And then when I turn it off, it turns off. So I'm gonna go switch all those, and then I'll put everything back together. So here's the switchboard installed, and I've already gone and set it up, assigned outlets, and labeled everything. The first one here is the 12 volt appliance circuit. That's, you know, the power supply for all my radios, so I go turn this on. I got my HF radio, I could turn my Kenwood on. And now everything's running, and if I flick that switch off, then they're both going to power. Then going back down here, VCR and TV. I don't use those a whole lot, so they'll probably be turned off, but I like that. I like that they're not just getting power all the time, and that I could just turn them on when I need to use them. This one, I haven't plugged anything into it yet. And these are my chargers. These first 2 are USB chargers for 2 smartphones that I keep charged up here. And then these 2 are for my Bofang UV5R and my BF Tech handheld. And so what I like about this is when I go to use the radio, instead of having to unplug all of the noisy adapters, I could just go turn all these off and then turn the radio on. Now the fact that it's kind of limited to only 13 amps is a bit annoying, but think about it like your house. There are hundreds of outlets, receptacles, light sockets in your house. And if you were to use every single one, then you'd need your house to be prepared for like hundreds of amps, high power. But we get like 200 amp service because you're not using all of your outlets at the same time. Here I'm not using all 8 at the same time. And even when I am, they're not terribly high current devices. When I turn my radio on, I'm going to turn all of my chargers off, and when I'm not using the radio, I'll have things charged, and the VCR and TV are only used when I need to use them. Well, that's going to be it for this video, and if you notice an ever so slight increase in video quality, it's because I recently acquired an iPhone 8 for filming to replace that old iPhone 6 there whose battery is starting to go bad. But I'll do a follow-up video on the new iPhone 8 in the near future. So other than that, thanks for watching.